Many classic movies over the years have catapulted certain cars to stardom and cult status. Do you remember Steve McQueen in Bullitt from the late 1960s? Well, he was driving a certain car around the streets of San Francisco very fast. It was one of these, a 1968 Mustang. How about Burt Reynolds in the Smokey and the Bandit movies? What was he driving? Well, apart from the awful wig, it was a Trans Am. How about David Hasselhoff in Knight Rider, a Pontiac Firebird, and so the list goes on. And if you want to emulate your heroes and drive a bit of a flashy car around that will turn heads, well, you can do for very little cash. Forget about the cars from the 90s, head back earlier to the 70s and even to the 60s for some seriously cool American classics. You know, I've never driven a Trans Am before, and now is my big chance. This is a 1986 model Trans Am, the sort of car that you would have seen in the Knight Rider films. Earlier Trans Ams were heavily featured in the Smokey and the Bandit films with Burt Reynolds, as we've already mentioned. 5-litre V8 under the bonnet with a wonderful growl to it. It sounds absolutely amazing. About 250 brake horsepower on tap. And this car would cost you around about £5,000. Now, when you think of American cars, you think about great big barges, but this isn't at all like that. Of course, you get power steering, an automatic box, fully loaded air conditioning, cruise control, the whole works. It's easy to park, it'll fit in your garage, and for $5,000, you can't go wrong. Boy, this is what it's all about. A 1968 Mustang, a Bullitt replica. Now, I think if you're going to drive an American car, you want to be seen to be a bit cool, and this has to be the ultimate cool car. It's had a complete ground-up restoration work. It's a 68, it's worth about £8,000. Now, the original owner would have spent some £8,000 or £9,000 doing that restoration work, and it's generally the case when you're restoring a car, you rarely get back the money that you've spent on it, which of course is a bit of a problem. But now it's holding its value. £8,000 or so would buy you this particular car, and it's a whole lot different to the Trans Am that we've just been driving. This is a lot more of a raw beast. There's no power steering, no assisted brakes. It's a 5-litre V8 engine under the bonnet with about 225, 230 brake horsepower. And it has the most wonderful sound to it. If only I was on the streets of San Francisco. Now, we couldn't possibly do a feature on American classic cars without having driven a convertible. This is a 1966 Mustang, and it's a completely different car to drive than the previous Mustang that we've just been in. This has got a 4.7-litre V8 engine. Again, sounds wonderful. It's got about 225 brake horsepower on tap, do about 18 miles to the gallon around town, so not too bad. And what can I say, it's very different to drive. It's got power everything, this one. Power steering, which is incredibly light. It's got a power hood. I love the details around the dashboard, the heater controls and the light switches and the wiper switches and everything. It's just so classic Americana for you. I can't tell you how much fun I've had today or what a real hoot it's been driving these classic American vehicles. We've had 3 wonderful cars, 2 Mustangs and a Trans Am. Between them, 3 very different cars as well. And if I had to choose between them all, I don't honestly know which one I'd go for. If I had some spare cash and somewhere to house something like this at home, I could be very tempted into buying something like this.